But really, everything we're teaching, yeah, there's some specifics about how, a blind person or a person with low vision accesses like physical information, uses a cane or uses a magnifier. But really, what I've learned, all of this is just about becoming a better human being first. And then we happen to have our disability or hair color or whatever the other things we want to put behind that. But yeah, it's really just like that. Like, we're all human beings first, and we happen to have these other unique things about accessing, the world and the things we want to do.
Yeah, as you're talking, Brian, through your transition and then leading into what now you do for work, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, these are all things that everybody could benefit from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It has. Yeah. I was a middle school teacher, and that was kind of always what I taught in the inner city here in Atlanta. And that's what I kind of always tried to get across to the kids is like, this is not your life destination. This is, let's get you out of this space and how to do that. So I totally relate to, it doesn't matter if you're different. It's just seeing the spark and how do you blow on it to make the best version of the human.
Yeah. And what was it in your guys' lives that made you think that you wanted to be better?
Right. Exactly.
Well, that's a question.
Addie, what do you think?
For me, I always feel like even though I arrived in a different shell, the universe always had a big story for me. Like, it's always been innate that I wasn't supposed to sit still. So I can't really put my finger on it, except the universe said, here you go, now get moving.
Yeah, and the difference for our process was, I had polio at a year old, so I don't know anything different. She came into the world with CP, so she doesn't know any different. So that component of a family and the way we were raised is very important in both of our stories. And, and like she was saying before, we were treated no differently. We had other siblings. We had the same chores as them. My dad wasn't above putting us in the backyard and pulling weeds. We didn't get a pass on anything. And those same things. So when I got to the age where I started to think about what I was going to do to be on my own and be out of this, because that was the expectation. I mean, my dad's old school. When we turned 18, he started charging us rent. If you're going to stay here, you're going to, and everything else, you're paying for your own clothes now. You get a haircut, you're paying for it. Any of those things that came along with life. At 18, we started, paying for ourselves. So, okay, I had already started to work by then. But even before that, I started thinking about, I'm going to have to find a job. What can I do? What can't I do? Kind of making a list over here. That's all out. These are potential ones. And, and then what are my aptitudes? And never gave a lot of thought about actually the disability part, because that was easy. There's just things you can't do because you're,
right. We're not going to be servers.
Yeah, exactly. And, so then the things that I wanted to do, and then there's other limitations, like I wanted to be an architect for a while, but then I found out there's a lot of math in architecture. I'm like, I'm horrible at math. All right, let's take that one and put it over here. But yeah, but it was always that, you want to have a full life, I think is what motivates you. That, you have the dreams that everybody has. I wanted to, get married, have children, all of those things.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys had the right type of environment where you were able to sort of develop that sense of like agency where you were self-directed and not be victims.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It was, you can't, what are you going to do? Because you have so many tools and you can't just sit on them. Like, there was always an expectation of, like, how they say, to whom much is given, much is expected. It was always that get out there, don't don't sit here.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and that expectation that you said, right? The people expected you, that you surrounded yourselves with, they expected you to still do more, right? And I think it was like Tony Robbins or probably some other wise person too on the way said the best predictor of our future are the 5 people we spend the most time with.
That's interesting.
And if we want to change our future, if we, switch out 1 or 2 people, because our influences around us definitely affect us. And not feel like, I don't feel like a victim, to life or anything like that. And it doesn't sound like you guys do. Yeah,
Nope.
There's difficult things. There are things that are inconvenient, but I'm not a victim to my life circumstances. I'm still a whole person.
Right.
I think we could do a whole show on expectations. It's such a key and core component, I think, to the disabled community. I think many times people without disabilities want to lower expectations. And, I always use this example. You've seen the posters they put up at work, and, it's like reach for the moon or reach for the stars. And even if you fall short, you'll still get to the moon and, different things like that. Well, it seems like that is taken off the table for us many times. They lower the expectations because they think that we can't stretch ourselves. I want to be held to that same example. Stretch yourself. There's no shame in falling short. You tried. And maybe you try again, and maybe this time you will get there. But don't hold me back, just on your expectation.
Yeah, and that expectation's coming from because they're really self-projecting. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
They're trying to imagine their life in your shoes, in your scenario, and they go, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know how it's done. And so then they go, well, it can't be done, because they don't know, because they don't have that experience, or they're just small-minded. And that speaks to the bigger problem of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is that, like, navigating the social waters and the expectations in which people are living in is a real influence on everybody in all minority communities.
Right. I was just going to say, like, even teaching in the inner city, that was the thing. Like, they're never going to leave these 10 blocks. Well, why not? Like, let's get you out of these 10 blocks just to show people you can move off the 10 blocks.
Yeah.
I think it happens in so many scenarios.
That's why I think traveling is so, people love traveling so much. You go to the next state and experience that, and it's like, wow. I mean, things are so much different just a state away. Imagine the other side of the country or the other side of the world, right? How different things would be and how it changes your perspective.
Well, yeah, and I get asked this question, right? I enjoy going on vacation around the world and spent most of my life teaching around the world in strange places, in Belize, helping people develop cane skills in Mayan ruins.
Wow.
Working in, villages in Malawi where there's no electricity and running water. I've in college, spent time living in London and in Paris, going to the Eiffel Tower. And people ask, well, why would a blind person go sightseeing?
Well, why wouldn't they, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. This is the point of, like, the whole funny thing about language and how limited even that statement is. Number one, what is blindness? Number two, why would they not go? There's still, like, the recognition is somehow how much patterns of light one's perceiving, you're somehow less than a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
So much more to the experience, right?
Well, yeah. And then also this idea of, like, when I started learning, like, echolocation as a young person, right? Echolocation is sound reflects off of objects, and the human brain can image with sound.
Mm-hmm.
We've done MRI studies where they see that the object recognition parts of the brain are activated by echoes. So my brain, when, like, you lose one sense, the other senses get stronger.